This video captures the first shots fired between a man held up inside the Country Club Motel and law enforcement officers.
Oh my God.
Shortly before 10 p.m., the U.S. Marshals Fugitive Task Force was out at the Country Club Motel attempting to locate a subject. Shortly after they arrived on scene, they experienced gunfire and in return exchanged gunfire.
At this point, police have not identified the man who is shooting, nor have they confirmed whether or not he's been neutralized. Lieutenant Colleen Stewart did confirm 3 or 4 federal officers were struck by bullets during the exchange.
We did have several officers from various agencies that sustained non-life-threatening injuries. They were transported to local hospitals and are receiving medical care at this time.
The entire area in the 3700 block of Southwest Topeka Boulevard was blocked off by police for hours Saturday night as a matter of public safety. Restaurants and surrounding businesses were also forced to evacuate. A Kansas Highway Patrol helicopter circled the perimeter of the motel as a SWAT team, police officers, and firefighters continued to investigate on the ground.
It's police, so everybody wants to come see what's going on.
Crowds gathered to see the action unfold, but officers forced them back as stray bullets continued to fly through the air for at least a half an hour. Angela Rutschman was among those watching behind the Ed Bozarth car dealership and says this incident has raised a large question of safety for her.
I have a child, and stuff like this makes me scared to let him grow up in the city right now.
Around midnight, the area became less flooded with patrol cars, and sidewalks that were initially closed to the public became open again. At that point, a majority of the crews on scene were firefighters. A fire started sometime during the shooting, and the motel blazed for at least 3 hours.
It had spread up into the attic area in the joist spaces, and when it did finally vent through the roof, then you saw the large amount of flames. But
Fire Marshal Michael Martin would not comment whether the fire was intentionally set, nor did he say if they found any bodies inside the building. He could only confirm the Country Club Motel is a total loss.
Right now we're just going through the hot spots, and we're trying to do some overhaul and salvage and see what we can get the fire completely put out.
Lieutenant Stewart told 13 News they would be able to continue their side of the investigation once the fire was put out.
We've got a lot of work ahead of us.
Law enforcement officers who worked the incident attended a debriefing at 9 Sunday morning to discuss what happened and their next step in the investigation. Carrie Larsen, 13 News. Melissa, we can now confirm federal officers received information to search here at the Country Club Motel right behind me for 28-year-old Orlando Collins, who is wanted on a federal arrest warrant. We know that 3 federal officers were shot, but we're told they're all in stable condition. Authorities also say they found a body in the room from where Collins was shooting.
431, we got shots fired.
Gunshots rang out at the Country Club Motel Saturday night. The FBI says the United States Marshals Service Fugitive Task Force exchanged fire with 28-year-old Orlando Collins. 13 News received police scanner traffic as dispatch spoke with officers on the scene.
Coming northbound, he's shooting to the north. Don't come in from the north.
According to a news release from the FBI, Collins was wanted on a federal arrest warrant, and the task force received information he might be at the Country Club Motel on South Topeka Boulevard. The FBI says as officers approached the hotel room door, a person inside started firing. As they called for backup, scanner traffic identifies who they believe was pulling the trigger.
On the units en route, the suspect is Orlando Collins, 1067. He has already fired several times north, and we have possible officers that were hit.
Topeka Police and Shawnee County Sheriff's deputies blocked off the area and evacuated local restaurants and businesses as the shooting continued.
I need people to shut down 37th in Topeka, and he's shooting right towards Burger King.
The FBI confirms 3 federal officers were injured, 2 deputy United States Marshals and 1 FBI agent. Their injuries were not considered life-threatening. Soon after the shooting, the Country Club Motel erupted in flames. Fire crews spent most of the night and into the morning extinguishing the fire. Sunday morning, the FBI said a body was found inside room 29 where they believe Collins was shooting. At this point, they have not officially confirmed if the dead person is Collins. Topeka Fire Marshal Mike Martin told me last night that the building here, the motel, is a complete loss from the fire, and they still haven't come out with any details of how the fire started. We do know that the people who are staying here have been displaced, but the American Red Cross is helping them at this moment. And Melissa, FBI spokesperson Bridget Patton told me that they're not doing any interviews with media at this point in time, as the incident is still in the early stages of investigation. Quentin Lawton was taken into federal custody after being indicted by a federal grand jury. He has been charged with lying to a federal marshal who is trying to locate Orlando Collins before Collins shot 3 law enforcement officers and set fire to this motel the night of April 23rd. And as it turns out, this isn't the first time Lawton has been charged with a criminal offense. Shortly before gunshots rang out at the Country Club Motel, shooter and wanted felon Orlando Collins was visited by 36-year-old Quentin Lawton at his motel room, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office. The U.S. Attorney news release says in an attempt to locate Collins prior to the shooting, a federal marshal approached Lawton and asked if Lawton knew where Collins was. But he denied having been at the Country Club Motel and said he had not seen Collins. Officers were able to locate Collins around 10 p.m. and exchanged gunfire, which resulted in 3 federal officers shot, a fire that destroyed one of the buildings at the Country Club Motel, and Collins' body later found among the rubble. Federal officers did not say how Lawton and Collins knew each other or what they met to discuss. 13 News uncovered an extensive criminal history for Lawton. In 2002, he served time on drug charges, but was released in 2004. Then, in 2008, Lawton was arrested after a 3-hour standoff with Topeka police. Here's the scene from that incident on July 4th, 2008.
Okay. You guys, just stay right there for a minute.
Officers arrived at the 200 block of Southeast 35th Terrace around 8 o'clock that night in an attempt to arrest Lawton on federal drug charges after an 11-month search for him. He was inside the home with 8 other adults and his 5-year-old son. The standoff came after Lawton was indicted in February on federal charges under the operation named Stonewalled. That resulted in 43 arrests for trafficking methamphetamine and cocaine throughout Kansas. Convicted, Lawton faces a maximum of 5 years in federal prison and a fine of up to $250,000. We also now know that the 2 U.S. Marshals and 1 FBI agent have been released from the hospital and are said to be in good condition. And Melissa, both the shooting investigation done by the Topeka Police Department and the FBI evidence collection are ongoing.